Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent visit to China was both lengthy and consequential. Over 4 days, he attended multiple high-level events, including the SCO summit, a trilateral meeting with Mongolia and China, and formal state engagements in Beijing. Putin described the structure of the visit as deliberate, allowing for formal negotiations and informal exchanges. He said that this format was very important and very useful, stressing that the results were overwhelmingly positive. According to him, the adoption of forward-looking documents, including China's initiative on global governance, was evidence of shared confidence and ambition among participating nations. On the much-discussed Siberia 2 pipeline, Putin dismissed speculation around Russia-China energy relations. Finally, we have found a consensus of negotiating parties, he said, emphasizing that the agreements were purely market-based, mutually beneficial, and would guarantee China stable supplies. He added that demand in Asia was growing rapidly, and Russia could now deliver more than 100 billion cubic meters of gas through multiple routes, including Mongolia. When asked about Ukraine and NATO, Putin repeated a familiar position. He insisted that every country has the right to its own security framework, but the security of one country cannot be ensured by the security of another country, in this case the Russian Federation. While rejecting NATO membership for Ukraine, he said Russia had never opposed Kyiv's pursuit of economic ties, including EU membership. The issue of security guarantees was raised again. Putin was categorical. We have never raised or discussed such a question. Security guarantees are natural, but this has nothing to do with any kind of exchange, especially with the exchange of territory. He framed Russia's actions not as territorial ambition, but as defending cultural and linguistic rights of communities who, through referendums, chose to align with Moscow. He cited the UN Charter on Self-Determination as justification. On Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Putin was skeptical. He was elected for 5 years. 5 years have passed. That's it. The powers are over. He argued that under Ukraine's constitution, only elections or a referendum could renew authority, and with martial law in place, neither was possible. Still, he said a meeting was possible if it is well prepared and will lead to some positive possible results. Turning to global order, Putin rejected accusations from the German Chancellor labeling him a war criminal. Instead, he recalled Europe's role in the 2014 Maidan upheaval, saying Western guarantors had failed to uphold peace and therefore bore responsibility for today's tragedy. Addressing questions about Western sanctions, Putin suggested they were less about Ukraine and more about economic rivalries with countries like China, India, and Brazil. He said powerful states would not tolerate being threatened. It is impossible to talk to such partners in such a tone today. On frozen Russian assets, Putin warned of global consequences. Those who are smarter understand that this will destroy all the principles of international economic and financial activity. He said confiscating assets would damage the global economy and accelerate economic fragmentation. Asked about battlefield realities, Putin said Russian forces were advancing in all directions at varying speeds, while Ukraine struggled to rotate capable units and was operating with combat readiness levels below 50%. He warned that operations remain difficult and should not be underestimated. On relations with the United States, Putin shared details of his exchanges with President Donald Trump. He recalled greeting him with, "I am very glad to see you, dear neighbor, healthy and alive." He downplayed speculation, noting that conversations were brief and pragmatic. On Trump's humor, particularly a sarcastic Truth Social post, Putin responded, "The President of the United States is not without humor. Everything is clear. We all know him well. I have a good relationship with him." He emphasized that no leaders he met in Beijing expressed negativity toward Washington. In fact, all of my interlocutors, without exception, supported our meeting in Anchorage and expressed their hope that the position of President Trump and the position of Russia would lead to the end of the armed conflict. Culture and soft power were also touched upon. Putin noted Xi Jinping's proposal for joint films to ease Russian producers' entry into the Chinese market. Their first co-production, Red Silk, had already gained popularity, and further projects were being discussed. When asked about longevity and medical advances, Putin observed that rising life expectancy would bring major social and economic consequences, warning policymakers to prepare. On the SCO and multipolarity, he stressed that cooperation was not aimed at confrontation. We are not thinking about how to outplay someone. We are just thinking about how to better organize our own work. In closing, he addressed peace negotiations. Putin voiced confidence in his negotiators and expressed readiness to elevate talks if necessary. On US envoy Steve Witkoff, he said criticism in the West was misplaced. It is not my task or my business to assess the work of the US president's assistant. Mr. Witkoff is exposing the position of the US president and not any other. Finally, Putin underscored that Russian soldiers at the front overwhelmingly believed their mission's goals must be achieved. Most of them want Russia to achieve all its goals set out at the beginning of the special military operation. Everything else is secondary, and of course by peaceful means. With that, the Russian president concluded a press conference that revealed not only his strategic calculations, but also his reliance on old alliances, new markets, and the possibility, however fragile, of peace through negotiation.